Continued today at City Hall on the mayor's $106.7 billion proposed budget. Now, yesterday, while schools chancellor David Banks testified before the city council inside, protesters were making their voices heard outside. Take a look.
No more cuts! No more cuts!
The challenge, council should just know for us on almost all these issues, is that there is, at the end of the day, still a finite pot of dollars that have to be spread out across a wide range of issues, all of which are important. And the decisions around, where those dollars go always creates a push and pull around those things that are important. They're all important.
All right, so the city budget needs to be approved by July 1st, right? And there's been a lot of numbers thrown around, especially around education, the migrant crisis, and mental health. All important topics here. So New York City Comptroller Lander will be testifying before the City Council this afternoon. But first, he's joining us in studio with a preview of his budget review and recommendations. So good to see you, Comptroller. Good to have you here in the studio.
Good morning. Great to be in the new studio.
Yes. So let's talk about this. Before your testimony today, right, Mayor Adams says the city is expected to spend $4.3 billion on the asylum seekers. Do you agree with the overall number of his estimation here?
Roughly, yeah. That's over 2 years. So the projection for next year, the year we're debating, is $2.9 billion, and the City Hall estimates that $1.7 billion of that the city will pay rather than the feds or the state. We're not really getting almost anything from the federal government. We should be being reimbursed for it. The right to seek asylum is a federal obligation.
What is the budget set at right now for the migrant crisis, and where does that leave the gaps then in services?
So what the mayor's proposing for the budget for next year in this $106.7 billion budget is $2.9 billion for asylum seekers for shelter. One thing I've really been pushing on is almost all of that money is going just for emergency shelter, almost none of it to get people the legal services they need to file for asylum, file for work authorization, and then be able to move out of shelter. It's a great story in Politico this morning about the wind shelters that are doing that and the success they're having. If we could get that up, then people could be moving out of shelter. But that number's not yet in the budget.
Yeah, we had Christine Quinn on the Political Show this past weekend talking about that very program. But, the city is expected to take about $2 billion in revenue. That's their estimations. So where is that money coming from?
Yeah, it's really surprising. You wouldn't know this from, kind of just reading the news. City tax collections are up 5.8% year to date over last year. Sales tax receipts are actually really strong. Personal income tax is up, even though Wall Street bonuses are down. The economy is just doing a little better than you might think, 99.7% of pre-pandemic jobs. Now, there are always, storm clouds and risks on the horizon if they bust the debt ceiling. And, of course, balancing the budget, as the chancellor said, is a real challenge.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about what the chancellor said yesterday, school's chancellor talking about there's not going to be budget cuts to education, but some of the programs are being scaled back. So make sense of that for us.
So what he said yesterday is that they're not going to cut the budgets for individual schools. And that was a great thing to hear, because last year they made very large cuts to individual schools, and they didn't even know it at the time of the council hearings. We wanted to see those school budgets yesterday, and I hope they're coming soon. We're watching maybe Friday. But as you point out, other things, especially that 3K program, which was supposed to get to universal, there hasn't been enough outreach. Seats aren't available in everyone's neighborhoods, and now they're actually proposing to cut the program by hundreds of millions of dollars in the years to come. And of course, costs are so high, childcare is expensive. Getting universal pre-K and then getting 3K for all will be a big step forward. So that cut's a real loss.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big de Blasio push, too, for former Mayor de Blasio. So let me ask your overall thoughts then. As you're testifying today, what are you hoping to get out of the testimony, and what do you think of the overall budget?
Yeah. So some specific things. Look, we do need a long-term savings plan to manage costs, but we don't need to cut core services like CUNY, like libraries. There's a cut people haven't talked about much to supportive housing in the wake of the killing of Jordan Neely. We need more resources for mental health response and for supportive housing. Those cuts are penny wise and pound foolish, and I hope the council will restore them. There's actually a great program that we won last year that provides child care for kids from undocumented families. I got to meet one of the moms who's actually an asylum seeker who got here, and then wasn't sure what she was going to do, how she was going to work. She couldn't believe there was this program. And so it's only 600 kids, but it's been amazing. We got to get the money back in the budget to restore that program.
And how much is the migrant crisis affecting all of that then?
Yeah, it's the biggest unknown for sure. We say we're estimating about $3 billion, but we don't know how many people will keep coming. Can we help people get out of shelter? Will the federal government step up and provide the resources? So that's the single biggest unknown this year. But I still think it's part of propelling New York's economy forward. I mean, we've thrived for generations by immigrants coming from Ireland and Italy and Jews and Dominicans and Chinese, and this new wave of folks will bring the energy, the entrepreneurship, the culture that helps the city thrive for generations to come.
And you know, you are in charge of the city's finances, but you've been pretty outspoken overall about various topics and things that have played out in New York City, Jordan Neely being one of them. And the mayor kind of came back at you and said it was irresponsible for you to make some comments about Jordan Neely. What is your relationship with the mayor overall?
Well, we work very closely together. Look, the charter builds in an oversight role for the comptroller. Your job is to say, I think you got this wrong in the budget and you didn't estimate this just right. And that agency's not working quite as well as it's supposed to be. That's the job the charter assigns the comptroller. And so there's a certain amount of tension between every mayor and comptroller. But we're also working really closely together to try to cut down the 300 days it takes us to pay our human service providers. We're up in Albany together trying to get legislation to make our capital projects more timely and less expensive. So it's a push and pull, I think, exactly as the charter wants and as New Yorkers would expect.
So what grade would you give the city right now?
Well, incomplete is unfortunately always and on the budget especially.
Yes,
you know, you do the preliminary budget in January, you have the executive budget come out in April. Council's got to adopt it by June. Robust debate is underway. I hope we can restore some of these cuts to essential services. Let's keep a close eye on making a long-term, more strategic savings program. One thing we noticed is this past year we spent $1.5 billion settling claims against the city for traffic crashes and a wide range of other things. If we could just reduce that by 10%, give the agencies incentives to say, reduce the crashes that your agencies cause by 10%, put in speed delimiters, that's $150 million we could restore basically every one of the cuts I mentioned right there.
All right. Well, keep us posted on the testimony. We'll be watching today. Good to have you here in studio.
Thank you so much.
Make sure you come back.
I will. Great to be here.